Hello and welcome to our final build-up road to Cheltenham as we are less than 24 hours from it all kicking off. The Cheltenham Festival is underway. You can listen to all our previous shows if you want to look back on some of the biggest races, the Champion Chase, the Champion Hurdle, the Arkle, loads of races that we covered over the course of the last 3 episodes, plus our big Cheltenham preview with Paul Townend and Kevin Doyle that we had last Thursday night is also there available to you to watch. So lots to cover. The only thing we haven't really covered, Angus, as I bring in our shaman of Cheltenham, Angus O'Mackeen. Angus, we haven't covered the Gold Cup, and we've left that for good. We did cover it a little bit with Paul. We talked about album photo and the 3 in a row, but this is a Gold Cup special as we are literally just almost there at Cheltenham. Before we start on the Gold Cup, though, because there's always something, you know, this isn't exactly a racing news podcast or anything like that, but we have to talk about the fact that we were no sooner off the air with Paul on Thursday night when it was confirmed that your favourite horse, the mad joke himself, Energamine, was, first of all, looked like he was out of the Champion Chase, then out of Cheltenham altogether, which is a real blow. And then you're hearing today as well that Altior will not be challenging Chacun Pour Soi in the Champion Chase, which is a real pity, because that race was built up as future superstar versus is there life in the old dog yet, but it's not going to happen now.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking last week, I didn't say it in the podcast because, you know, I didn't want to jinx it, but we had been incredibly lucky that all the big stars seemed to be, you know, looking that we were going to get to Cheltenham, and that was highly unusual. These aren't machines. These are animals at the end of the day. Things happen. Animals get injured or whatever, and they all seem to be getting there. But, of course, the last few days, you know what I mean, first of all, out of the Arkle, and then, you know, the terrible news about, well, it's not terrible, but sad enough news. Hopefully gets another day in Altior, missing out on the Champion Chase. But hopefully that's it. Hopefully there's another few names like Annie Mac, not as prolific, I suppose. They're out at the festival as well. But still, hopefully we've got over that. From here on in, all the jockeys and all the horses are going to make it and line up, and hopefully it's going to be a fantastic Christmas, as I like to call it, because this time of the year is certainly my Christmas. So happy Christmas to you too, Mick.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Christmas Eve, best day of the year. No, it's sorry, I meant to say obviously the Arkle for Energamine, but in terms of the Champion Chase, though, there's a part of me with Altior that is like, I almost wish he called it a day after 2019 and, you know, didn't continue to go on, and you 4 out of 4 at Cheltenham, which it looks like he will. Like, he's not going again this year, so it will still be a 4-time festival winner, never beaten at the track. You don't know whether he'll be back next year. It's probably unlikely at this stage, but it's almost a pity when a horse kind of gets the niggly injuries and then keeps going and gets beaten a couple of times. You almost, isn't it? It'd be so much more romantic if you just was this like unbeatable legend that was taken down in his prime. It's a weird thing with all sports, really, that's the way sometimes you have to kind of see the petering out.
Yeah, and it's hard to know whether it's hard to see him ever coming back. Now, he is a superstar. You know, that's the nature of superstars, that defy the odds. But the festival goes on. There's still Chacun Pour Soi. He'll be still hoping to make a statement, or the connections would be hoping that he makes a statement. And you have Politolog there. You have Nubenegra, who I suppose Dan Skelton would probably be feeling that he was overlooked. You've put the kettle on. There's the possibility there for a major, or I suppose somebody from back in the field to make a major statement, because after all, if you remember when we were speaking about the Champion Chase, Chacun Pour Soi isn't actually proven at Cheltenham. So it's still a fascinating race. You know, nobody knows what's going to happen with or without Altior. Yeah, it's a race not to be missed.
I thought Paul was fairly confident about Chacun, and the fact that he was so seasoned, it wasn't going to affect the fact that he hasn't been to Cheltenham, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes. The other thing, look, I mean, making it about Paul Townend, making it about Willie Mullins is an easy enough thing to do when you talk about Cheltenham, but if you look at the Gold Cup, you know, it is all about the two of them, really, because Album Photo is looking to do something that, you know, we saw last in 2004 when Best Mate won the 3 in a row. We saw it before that. It was 1966, and probably the greatest horse of all time in Arkle. It's been done 4 times ever. 1950s and the 1930s being the other times where we've seen a horse doing 3 in a row. My question to you as a layman, before we get into this race and how good Album Photo is in regards to this field, I have a real strong memory of Best Mate being this unbeatable horse that, I think he was like really, really heavy odds on for his third. And Album Photo seems to be just good enough to beat the field every year rather than this dominant next generation horse. So for a horse like that to go and win 3 Gold Cups in a row, again, not that he's not spectacular, but he's not Arkle or Best Mate. And for a horse like that to go and win 3 Gold Cups in a row would be almost even more remarkable as a feat.
Absolutely. And the question must be asked, are we completely overlooking Album Photo? To think that you mentioned him in the same sentence as Best Mate and Arkle, Golden Miller and the boys. And then you talk about, I have been talking about potential superstars at this year's festival, your Honeysuckles, your Chacun Pour Soi, your Shiskins, your Envoy Allens, Monkfish.
Yeah.
And we're not including Album Photo in that discussion, despite the fact that he's going for 3 in a row. It's madness, really. And he's favoured for it. But I think if he does go and win the 3 in a row, that's it. Like, there's no denying he is a special horse. You win it once by fluke, fair enough. You win it twice by fluke, you can't really start ignoring that. If he wins it 3 times, there's no excuses that can be made. He's just a very special talent and will absolutely go down in history. He's already going down in history by winning back-to-back. You even talk about Caudo Star. He didn't win it back-to-back. Now, fair enough. He was facing another generation of talent in Dinman, but Album Photo's already achieved what Caudo Star didn't do, and if he goes and wins the 3 in a row, I mean, this is a horse that deserves every bit of credit that comes his way, even if it's not coming to him just yet.
Yeah, and that I suppose that's the question, and I think that's what we'll see this week. But like, I suppose, I know you've got an outside tip. You mentioned it last Thursday, and we'll talk about it again for this race. But there's other like horses in there, Champ, who we've mentioned a couple of times over the course of the weeks doing the show, and plus Tard, and there's a few others there as well. But what kind of a field has Album Photo got up against them here in terms of class?
In my opinion, this is probably the toughest field he will face, because every single horse in this field has something different in its arsenal. There's Frodon, King George, winner, will want to gallop out ahead, set the running, set the pace. Champ showed the ability last year coming from behind the RSA, that showed that he can take it easy and just attack late. You go through them all. Applitard, very, very fancied, 3rd in the Ryanair last year, but all their connections seem very, very confident that he'll be able to stay. Santini was only beaten by a neck last year, and if he can, surely it's not that hard to find the extra neck required to get on top of Album Photo this year. A better jump at the last, and Album Photo maybe skies it a bit or whatever. There's so many areas of expertise across the field. I think if he does it this year, it will be certainly his most impressive performance, because you have to beat so many different types of stars essentially. Yeah. And I think he's certainly up against it.
Yeah, you can see the odds on Ladbrokes there at the bottom of the screen if you're watching. Santini 10-1, as you mentioned. Just outside of that is Frodon is 12-1. Champ is 4. Applitard 9-3, and Album Photo's 5-2 favourite. So probably rightly favourite, and you have to go with the horse who's done it and who's won 2 Gold Cups, and he's the class of the field. What is it that makes Album Photo obviously he's already a Cheltenham legend at this stage, and that he's won 2 Gold Cups, but what, is it his jumping, is it his acceleration, is it his staying? Obviously he's got up that hill twice, and as you said, in a very close race against Santini last year, just had enough to hold on. What is it that makes him stand out?
I think essentially he's a course specialist here. He just loves Cheltenham, which is obvious from his last 2 wins there at the festival. You take Kimboy, for example. Kimboy beat him in Punchestown after he won his first Gold Cup. I think that was the last time Ruby hopped off a horse and said to Willie, find somebody for the next one. But so I think there's probably a variety of reasons, but I think the main reason is some horses just are built for Cheltenham. And Albion Photo clearly is one. You have to remember, this isn't a 3 mile chase. This is a 3 mile 2 chase, so 3 miles and a quarter. And taking into consideration the hill, you may as well say it's a 3.5 mile. And he just seems unfazed by the ground. Obviously, I think horses can always sense that this is somewhere special. They go to Cheltenham on the Monday for the last few days. You'd have seen the horses arriving in Cheltenham and going for a spin around the track. So they know this is a normal. You don't do this for any random meeting.
Tomorrow, Christmas, yeah.
There's something different about this, and they'd been hopping on the trucks and going across it. And obviously, he's shown that he's completely unfazed by this. When he gets out there, when there's big crowds, he's able to perform. He's able to get up the hill. He just seems to love Cheltenham, and I think it really all boils down to that. Maybe there is some magic formula there.
He's very lightly raced as well, isn't he, Angus? Like, I mean, I was looking at it there before we spoke to Paul, and like, I mean, he's won on New Year's Day in Tramore both the last 2 years, and he's won and last year won the Gold Cup, and they're his last 4 races. I think he had the Punchestown one after the first Gold Cup, and that's it. So 3 times at Tramore, 3 times at Cheltenham, once in Punchestown in the last 3 years. This horse is, he's a specimen that is being well protected and just geared up. Willie Mullins' training job is, really comes to the fore here, because this is a horse that's been geared up for one race every single year and nothing else.
Well, I'm not sure was it by design or not the first year of just going to Tramore and then straight to Cheltenham. But after it worked the first year, Willie Mullins was of the opinion that, well, if it works, why fix something that's not broke? So they kept at it, and it worked again last year. And obviously, they went again for it this year. If it worked twice, why not? You'd be mad to change it up again a third time. So, yeah, I think again, I'm not sure. It certainly was by design this season and last season, but I'm not sure about the first season. But if it works, it works. And I'm sure we'd all be saying, what's he doing if he did it anyways different? And by all accounts, I'm not sure, was he very happy with his Tramore run this year? I don't think they were happy initially, but I think after going back and reviewing the footage, they were fairly happy. So he looks in good order. Listening to any whispers and listening to Paul last Thursday night, Paul Townend, he looks to be in good form. And as you said, he's still the one to beat. No matter what other achievements the rest of the field have, he's there at the top of the market. And when you're coming around that final bend, he's certainly the one, if you're on another horse, that you will have to be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I'm Albion Photo alone. If he's run this race on his own against the clock, I think I'd be hooked at this stage. I'm sold on that horse as the storyline at Cheltenham, and I do feel that for all of our conversations about some of the other great horses, and Honeysuckle on Tuesday and whoever else over the course of the week, and Shakun and so on and so forth, I do feel like this is, if Albion Photo goes and wins the 3 in a row, that's what 2021 Cheltenham is going to be remembered for. But if he doesn't, Angus, who's going to beat him? I know you're looking at definitely an each way pick anyway, but do you fancy anybody else to win the race? Or would you back against Albion Photo at the moment?
Yeah, I'm not in the Albion Photo camp, no.
I had a feeling. I just want the storyline, man. I don't care about the
Well, on that, Mick, though, like, there's so many storylines here.
Yeah.
There's a multitude of storylines. You have Champ, the second favourite there, that is a favourite of JP McManus. Of all the horses he owns, this is the apple of his eye, named after AP McCoy. And there was some great footage of AP's son, young son, cheering him on last year at the RSA when he won the RSA. That's a great story. At Plutard, Rachel Blackmore would be the first female jockey to win the race. You have Frodon, another female jockey. It'd be great to see a female jockey win the race in Bryony Frost. Also, Frodon would be going for the King George Gold Cup double. And as well as that, they're an emotional pairing. And I'm saying that in the best sense, that there'll be plenty of tears, because they've such a great connection. It's great for the sport to see the way Bryony Frost gets emotional on Frodon after any big race she wins. For example, last on St. Stephen's Day, or Boxing Day as they say in the UK, when they won the King George, same was evident then the year before last in the Ryanair. The one I really like, though, is Native River. I think it's the horse that has been completely overlooked, more so than Album Photo. This is the last horse to win the Gold Cup, remember, before Album Photo, and especially if the rain comes. So the last few days, or last night, the rain did come and it softened up a bit. With the last few weeks, been hearing that it'd be good to soft at Cheltenham, but now the rain was unexpected, but it did arrive. It's going to be softer than it was expected. If that holds up and it continues and more rain comes before Friday, this is be playing right into Native River's hands. It was heavy ground when he won in 2018, and what happened was he just goes off ahead, says the rest of you try and follow me, see how you get on. I love this ground. I love this track. Staying is no issue. He loves bottomless ground, and I think if there is bottomless ground and there is a cushion in the ground and it's softer than soft, which may well happen, considering recent developments, I think this race is over.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that Frodon might try and stick with him, and Frodon is a front-running horse too. But I think Native River is a complete, for front-running, and especially in heavy ground, he's a different animal. And I think it'll be a great story. 11-year-olds don't have a great record in the race at all. I think he'd be the oldest horse since, was it 1969 or 1959? I was writing the piece there for the website during the week. What a myth was the last horse. So he'd be breaking a half-century record. But it'd be a great story as well, because Colin Tizard, his trainer, he lost his daughter there last May. Following that, obviously, heartbreak around the yard, and a huge dip in form since. But if they can bounce back after that heartbreak, and after he announced that he's retiring at the end of this season and handing the keys of the yard over to Joe, his son, it'd be great to see the two legends of the game going off into the sunset together, and Colin Tizard and Native River. I think that'd be a great storyline, and I think I would not be opposing Native River, whatever the price. It doesn't really matter, really. I don't really look at the prices as much when there's such great narratives. But I'd be in that Native River camp all day long. And even if it wasn't heavy ground, I think he's a hugely consistent horse. He always hits the frame, even when the ground doesn't come up in his favour. And if you want a flutter, you can see he's certainly a good each way value, and I can't see him not finishing the race out of the money. Yeah,
okay. So you're thinking as a real each way tip, but if the ground does get heavy, you can start really thinking about him winning the race.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he'd be your tip to win the race,
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it'd be a really tough ask if it didn't turn up softer than soft. But if I think it does, I just can't see how any other horse in the field will be able to get past him. He's a bit of a machine.
Okay. Well, he's 11-1, and there's nothing like, I suppose, as you said, it'll be a great story of Colin Tizard, and it's also just nothing like the old legend of the track kind of coming back for one more hurrah. I'm imagining all these things when you say them, and all of them is the lunatic crowd at the winning post and people cheering around the parade ring and all. It is. We've all watched racing, and God only knows how much other sport over the last year where we are used to seeing it now without the crowds. But there's something about Cheltenham that's just, it hasn't got into my head yet that it's going to be different. It's going to not have all these things.
No, it is going to be very, very weird. And I know we'll probably touch a little bit later on the Supreme. And I think that's the most unusual feeling. Because it's almost the highlight. If you have to pick 1 second or a few seconds out of the festival, of the highlights every year, it's that Supreme start where the roar goes up. It's really special. I don't know. I'm sure the broadcasters are going to try a few different things to kind of make it special still, and there'll probably be certain features with people that have missed the festival, and there'll probably be more interaction with social media or whatever. But either way, it's going to be strange. But that doesn't mean it can't be special, and I think it will be very, very special. At the end of the day, if the jockeys win big races and connections win big races, that's what matters. That's what goes down in the history books.
that's who we see the close-ups of in the ring, and they'll all still be there. So, yeah, you mentioned the Supreme Novices there. That's the one I want to do quickly here. I know there's a few novice hurdle races that, like, you know, we were talking about similar horses all the way through the week, and you can touch on them. That's the Albert Bartlett and the Ballymore as well. But the Supreme Novice is the one that everybody loves because that gets things going. 1 o'clock, 20 past 1 tomorrow? Tuesday, it could even be Tuesday when you're listening to this, and we could just be a few weeks away or a few hours away. What do we start with here on our thing? Because it looks like Appreciate It. Willie Mullins, Paul Townend, the usual connection, is favourite 11 to 10, I think, on Ladbrokes to start things off for us this week. Do you reckon that Willie will start as he means to continue?
Yeah, everybody's looking at Appreciate It, probably the deserving favourite, unbeaten this season. Lost to Fernie Hollow at the 2020 Cheltenham Festival in the bumper, but that's not a stick to be beaten in with. Fernie Hollow has proved that probably another generational talent. That form has stood up really, really well. But I think there's one thing to consider here is that favourites don't actually have a very, very good record in this race. The last favourite we had winning this race was Duvan in 2015. And there is other competition. I do like the look of Metier. I think it's Metier, the Harry Fry horse. 3 over hurdles this year. Last time out won the Tolworth hurdle and won it by 12 lengths. That's a grade one. That's huge. If this was at another stable, a Nicky Henderson or a Paul Nichols, there'd be a lot more talk about the Appreciated Metier rivalry or battle. But because it's Harry Fry, as is always the case, you know, it's part and parcel. But I really like the look of him, and especially if the ground, as it appears to be at the moment, would be turning up a little on the soft side. He's been only racing on soft and heavy. I'm not saying that the quicker ground wouldn't suit him. I don't think we have any proof or evidence to suggest, because I don't think he suggested it would, because I don't think he's actually raced on a quicker ground. But that won't be an issue, I don't think, at the moment. You have Ballyadam there. Appreciate It seems to have the better of Ballyadam, is certainly in the last, the Dublin Racing Festival and at Christmas. He won the Royal Bond, and I think Keith O'Donoghue, who would ride him out a good bit at Gordon Elliott's stable, had said that, I think he quoted as saying, he's faster than Envoy Allen, which is, that's pretty impressive, and it makes you stand up and take note. But still on form, he's a bit defined with Appreciate It. And Soaring Glory is another horse that is John Joe O'Neill horse, and seems to be very well fancied. A lot of people are backing him off the one run that he had the last day, winning the Betfair hurdle. But having listened to the trainer, he said he was fairly, to quote, lukewarm on his chances. So I did think there was probably people getting carried away too much with the last day's win, as impressive as it was. But I think it's between the top two, and I would be tending to lean towards Metier to kind of upset the apple cart, and people maybe saying afterwards, well, how come we haven't been giving this horse more attention? How come it was all the Appreciated show? Yeah, so I think it'll be between the top two. Wouldn't surprise me to see Appreciated win, obviously, being favourite is favourite. But with favourites not having a great run in the race and them being novices and everything that brings, I think I'm going to side with Metier. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask briefly about when different storylines that we should be watching out for over the course of the week? Do you remember was it Paul Nichols a couple of weeks ago who had, or a couple of years ago, who kind of whose horses were out of form and weren't really being considered too well, and then all of a sudden won a couple of races on the Tuesday, and we were like, oh, hold on a second, and it completely changed everything we were looking at with his horses. I could be remembering that wrong, but it's definitely happened. I remember definitely with an English trainer. It might have been even Nicky Henderson. Say it could work the opposite way as well. I know if Appreciate It doesn't win, Energamine is out, when would people start talking about Willie Mullins and looking ahead to Chacun Persois tomorrow? Am I going to start thinking twice about my bet there?
Was it 2 or 3 years ago, Willie went through the Tuesday, no wins, went through the Wednesday.
Won every race on the Thursday or something.
I think, yeah, did the 4-timer on the Thursday.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Gordon Elliott just about pipped him, I think, maybe to the trainers, lead trainer.
But he almost got it, yeah.
But he really pushed him to the end. So if Willie's going in late on Thursday without a winner, I still would not be backing Willie not to leave Cheltenham without a winner. I think that's you can never bet against him. See what he's done at Punchestown the last for a number of years, certainly a few years back, where Gordon Elliott had the trainer's title all wrapped up. There's no way Willie could catch him in prize money, and he just obliterated every race at Punchestown. Willie is Willie. Willie is Willie. Like he's a once in a generation.
No issues in that yard.
Race again, but genuinely, he is a once in a generation. He's the most successful trainer in Cheltenham history. So that speaks for itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, look, we're nearly there, Angus. I mean, like we could. The Arkle probably isn't what it was, but you've mentioned the Supreme, and that's tomorrow. We'll have the Ultima as well, and then leading into the Champion Hurdle, which I still think is possibly an under-discussed race this year. The Champion Hurdle is going to be class, and if it is Honeysuckle, I think it'll be a great moment as well to watch Rachel Blackmore win the Champion Hurdle. But what's your overwhelming or sort of initial sort of feeling as we go into actual race day after all our 4 or 5 weeks of build up here?
I just can't wait for it to start. I want to sit back, and just bathe in it, really, because for so long we were questioning whether it would actually happen. And looking back in hindsight now, wouldn't it have been such a terrible thing to have missed out on all these battles and all these great races? We always knew it would be terrible to miss out, but knowing everything we know now, Jesus, it would have been horrendous if we didn't get the chance. But thankfully, we are going to get the chance. Just another few probably races that are probably worth touching on. Like we did speak about the Supreme novices, and that's obviously 2 mile for novices. Then you have the 2.5 mile for novice hurdlers, which is the Ballymore, and the 3 mile, which is the Albert Bartlett. 2.5 mile Ballymore was won by last year by Unfy Allen, and the 3 mile was won by Monkfish, who have obviously gone on to go to new levels again. But I've just picked out 2 horses here because, like the Supreme, it's hard to dig deep into it, and especially with the horse being fairly young still. But 2 horses I like, certainly the Ballymore. A lot of people will consider him the banker of the week. Very, very fancied. I've noticed that a lot of Irish jockeys and trainers and people well connected with different stables seem to really like this horse. It's been into favoritism now, and that's Bob Ollinger. Yeah. And if the soft ground does appear, loves soft ground. It's the only ground he's raced on, I think. Won a Grenace Group 1 handily, won by 14 lengths in December. Only loss, similar to Appreciated, was Fernie Hollow. That's no stick to beat him with. So I think that's a horse to watch out for as well. Mm-hmm. Probably not being spoken about in the same regard as some other stars at the festival. But as I said, I think I remember one of the bookies saying that this is their greatest liability, which that says something, considering the amount of big odds-on favourites we have. And also in the Albert Bartlett, this is a funny race. I find that they're all 5-6 year olds. They're still babies, really, and they go on a mad gallop. There's a lot of jostling. It's a busy field. So there's a few tips I've picked out to try and help find who the possible winners. So first of all, you're looking for a 6 or 7 year old. You're looking for a horse that's competed in a graded race at least, if not placed. Familiar with big fields, so they have to be in a field where there's a bit of bit of pushing and a bit of bullying going on. So you're looking 10 in a field or more. If you see a horse that's coming into the race that has only really raced in fields of 4, 5, 6, which is often the case with novice hurdlers, I usually try to avoid them. And also the distance, huge, getting the 3 miles plus that you need at Cheltenham. And I also like to, because it has such a reputation of providing long odds winners, I also like to try and pick an outside shout. So with that, I'd actually fancied a horse, I think it was 40-1, Sandy Mount Rose. Seemed to tick a lot of boxes for me, but as expected, that horse is going to, I think, is one of the handicaps now. But the horse I like, probably short enough for my liking now. Not that I would be having a flutter or anything. I just like the idea of finding a horse and predicting a horse that wasn't fancied by anybody else.
Yeah.
Alaphilippe, I think probably around 8-1 now.
Alaphilippe
ticks a lot of those boxes I mentioned, and obviously there are exceptions, a lot of exceptions, but by and large, I like to stick to that criteria, and usually works out that way.
Okay, there you go. There's a couple of extra tips for you. Angus will have his tips on Ballsdotie as part of our tipster table, which will be going out every morning. You can check that out on site over the course of the festival. Every morning we'll collect up all the tips that are across all the Irish and English papers and websites and everything else, including Angus for Balls, and we'll get them out to you early, and you can make up your own mind on what's happening. The world famous Balls.ie champion tipster table. Thanks a million to Angus for everything over the last few weeks, and also thanks a million to Ladbrokes, who've been our sponsor of all of our racing, as well as lots of other things as well. On the build-up, we speak to Kevin Doyle and to Stephen Ferris every week. We will be back with Stephen Ferris later in this week to look ahead to Ireland and England, of course. Also, Ladbrokes have a €5 free bet for Cheltenham in your account for existing customers and new customers as well. That came in yesterday, I think, like that. So that's something to enjoy with the festival. Of course, with anything, Angus's tips, anything else, if you are having a bet on Cheltenham, on the racing, please always gamble responsibly and visit dunlewy.net for more information. I hope you enjoyed the build-up road to Cheltenham. I certainly feel a lot more informed after the last few weeks, and I am only dying for the first race, the Supreme Novices Hurdle tomorrow. Enjoy Cheltenham. Talk to you soon.